Charleston, South Carolina, March 23, 2015. Cassandra Bennett was sorting through boxes in the back room of her husband's antique shop when she found the doll. It was wrapped in yellowed tissue paper, packed carefully in a wooden crate. The crate had come from the Eleanor Whitmore estate sale 3 days ago, a massive collection from a woman who died alone in her mansion. Cassandra pulled back the tissue paper. The doll was beautiful. Victorian era. Porcelain face with remarkable detail. Glass eyes that seemed to follow you. Real human hair styled in dark ringlets. Hand-stitched burgundy velvet dress. Tiny leather shoes. But something was wrong. The doll was heavy. Much heavier than it should be. Cassandra had been helping her husband Jerome run Bennett's Antiques and Curiosities for 23 years. She knew how much a porcelain doll should weigh. This one was at least 3 times heavier. She shook it gently. Something shifted inside. Not sand, something harder. Something that clicked. Cassandra carried the doll to her work table. She had cleaning supplies there, soft brushes, microfiber cloths, distilled water. She started with the face. Gentle circular motions. The porcelain was smooth and cool. The painted features were incredibly detailed, but the eyes bothered her. Too realistic. Too human. She moved to the hair, used a soft brush, then the dress. She was brushing the back when she heard it. Crack. Small. Quiet. But distinct. There was a hairline fracture running up the back of the head. "Oh no," she whispered. The crack widened. The porcelain splitting. She set the doll down gently. Too late. The back of the head separated with a soft sound. A piece fell away, and through the opening, Cassandra saw something that made her heart stop. White plastic, a hospital bracelet, and wrapped around it something small, pale, and unmistakable, a fragment of calcified human bone. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. Cassandra backed away from the table. Her breath came fast. "Jerome," she called. Her voice came out strangled. "Jerome, come here, now." Footsteps. Quick. Her husband appeared. 55, gray hair, reading glasses. "What's wrong?" She pointed. "Look inside. Tell me what you see." Jerome came to the table, bent down, looked through the crack. He went very still. "Is that a hospital bracelet?" Cassandra finished. "And bone. I think that's a child's bone." They stared at each other. "We need to call the police," Jerome said. Detective Patricia Monroe arrived 30 minutes later. Early 50s. Short gray hair, sharp brown eyes. 28 years with Charleston PD. The last 12 in cold case. When she walked into the back room and saw the doll, something in her expression changed. "You're the ones who called?" Cassandra nodded. "I was cleaning it. The head cracked. I saw what was inside." Monroe pulled on latex gloves, picked up the doll carefully, examined the crack. "Do you have something I can use to widen this?" Gently. Jerome brought a small screwdriver. Monroe worked carefully, prying away porcelain pieces. The opening grew larger. The hospital bracelet was definitely there. White plastic with blue printing, wrapped around something cylindrical and pale. Monroe pulled out her phone. "I need forensics at Bennett's Antiques on King Street. Possible human remains." "Yes, now." She looked at Cassandra and Jerome. "Where did you get this doll?" "Estate sale," Jerome said. "Eleanor Whitmore. She died last year. We bought about 30 boxes last week." "Eleanor Whitmore," Monroe wrote in her notebook. "Do you know anything about her?" "She was a recluse. Lived in that big house on Trad Street. Ran an antique doll shop downtown for years." Monroe examined the doll closer. "This isn't an antique," she said quietly. "What?" "The porcelain is too smooth. This was made recently, last 20, 30 years maybe. Modern adhesive, acrylic paint, 1980s or 90s at earliest." Cassandra felt cold. Why would someone make a modern doll and put a hospital bracelet inside? Monroe was reading the bracelet. Her face had gone pale. "What does it say?" Monroe looked up. "E.J., Charleston General Hospital, March 15th, 1985. The room was quiet. 1985, Jerome repeated. That's 30 years ago. Monroe was already pulling out her phone. I need to make calls. The forensics team arrived 20 minutes later. 3 people in white coveralls. They photographed the doll from every angle, carefully removed more porcelain until the interior was visible. Inside was wire and fabric and something else. Something organic. One of the techs looked at Monroe. We need to take this to the lab, but preliminary there are definitely human remains inside. Cassandra sat down. Jerome put his hand on her shoulder. How much? Monroe asked. Hard to say, but I can see fragments. Calcified material. Not a complete set. Just pieces. Monroe nodded. Bag it. Full analysis. By tomorrow morning. They worked for another hour. Cassandra and Jerome waited in the front of the shop. Finally, Monroe came out. I need to ask about this Eleanor Whitmore estate. How many items did you buy? About 30 boxes, Jerome said. Maybe 150, 200 pieces. Mostly dolls, some china, books. I need you to go through everything. Look for anything unusual. Any other dolls that seem too heavy or damaged. Don't open anything. Just identify any dolls that seem off. Then call me. She handed Jerome her card. After Monroe left, Cassandra and Jerome looked at each other. Do you want to do this now? Jerome asked. Cassandra nodded. I won't be able to sleep until we check. They went to the storage room. The boxes from the Whitmore estate were stacked against the wall. Let's be systematic, Jerome said. Open each box. Check contents. Look for heavy dolls. They moved quickly through boxes of books and china before reaching the 7th crate. Inside were 5 Victorian-style dolls. Cassandra picked them up one by one. The first 3 were normal. The 4th was heavy, just like the first one. Jerome, he picked it up. That's definitely too heavy. By the time they finished the inventory, they'd found 6 more dolls that were unusually heavy. 7 total, including the first one. Cassandra called Detective Monroe. Monroe returned the next morning with a warrant and forensics. They took all 7 heavy dolls. They also took every other doll from the Whitmore estate. We'll need to examine all of them, Monroe explained. What about the bracelet? Cassandra asked. Were you able to read it? Monroe hesitated, pulled out her notebook. The full text reads, Baby Girl Jackson. Born March 15th, 1985. 3:47 p.m. Charleston General Hospital. Mother, Sharon Jackson. Baby Girl Jackson, Cassandra repeated. Not EJ? The EJ was written by hand. Someone added it later. So this was from when a baby was born, Jerome said. Why would it be inside a doll? Monroe closed her notebook. I need to check something. I'll be in touch. She left with all the dolls. Cassandra couldn't stop thinking about it. A baby born in 1985, a bracelet sealed inside a doll. Human bone. That night, Cassandra couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The image of that cracked porcelain head kept replaying. The white bracelet, the organic interior, a baby girl. Born March 15th, 1985. At 2 a.m, Cassandra got up, went to her home office, opened her laptop. She typed, Eleanor Whitmore Charleston. The first results were recent. Obituary from November 2014. Then an older article from 2005. Historic doll shop closes after 40 years. The article had a photo of an elderly white woman standing in front of a shop on King Street, the Whitmore Doll Hospital. Eleanor Whitmore had run the shop from 1974 to 2005, specialized in antique doll repair. Cassandra kept searching. She typed, Missing Children Charleston 1980s. Pages of results. She clicked on a cold case website. Ebony Jackson, age 7, disappeared March 15th, 1992. Last seen leaving Ashley River Elementary School, March 15th. The same date on the hospital bracelet. Cassandra's hands were shaking. She clicked through more results. Dozens of missing children cases from Charleston, spanning decades, most unsolved. She pulled up a map. The Whitmore Doll Hospital on King Street, Ashley River Elementary School. 4 blocks away. Another missing child, last seen near Marion Square. 6 blocks from the doll shop. Another one. Disappeared, walking home from Buist Academy. 7 blocks from the shop, all of them near Eleanor Whitmore's shop. Cassandra grabbed her phone. Called Detective Monroe. 4 rings. Monroe answered, voice groggy. This is Monroe. Detective, it's Cassandra Bennett. I'm sorry to call so late, but I found something. Eleanor Whitmore's doll shop was on King Street from 1974 to 2005. All these missing children, dozens of them, they all disappeared within blocks of her shop. Silence. Then Monroe's voice, suddenly sharp. What children? I looked up missing children cases in Charleston. There are dozens, going back to the 1980s. All disappeared near her shop. I think Eleanor Whitmore took them. I think there might be more dolls. Cassandra, you need to stop investigating. This is police business. But the pattern. I know about the pattern, Monroe said. I identified Ebony Jackson this afternoon. The bracelet was hers. We're running DNA tests now. But I need you to stop digging. This is an active investigation. If you compromise evidence, it could ruin the case. Accomplices? Eleanor's dead. She has an estate, an heir. If word gets out before we've secured all evidence, things could disappear. Do you understand? Okay, I'll stop. Thank you. I'll call you when I have updates. Monroe hung up. Cassandra sat in the dark office. Jerome appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. What are you doing up? I couldn't sleep. I've been researching Eleanor Whitmore. And I think she killed children. A lot of children. For 30 years. And I think I know where more of them are. Detective Monroe went to the Whitmore mansion on Trad Street at dawn. Warrant. Team of 12 officers and forensics investigators. The mansion was massive. 3 stories. Red brick, white columns, iron gates rusted shut. They used bolt cutters on the gate. Walked up the overgrown path. The house smelled like dust and decay. Furniture covered in sheets. Curtains drawn. Everything dark and silent. They searched room by room, checking the living areas, the sewing room, and the attic. Nothing suspicious. Then one of the officers found the basement door, hidden behind a bookshelf in the library. The bookshelf was on wheels but blocked by a heavy desk. They moved the desk, slid the bookshelf, found the door. Locked. They broke it open. Stairs led down into darkness. Monroe went first, her flashlight cutting through dust. The basement was large. Stone walls, low ceiling, cold, and along the far wall were shelves. Dozens of shelves, filled with dolls. Monroe counted as she walked closer. 43 dolls. All Victorian style. All beautifully crafted. All sitting upright, staring forward with glass eyes. Each doll had a small brass plate beneath it. Monroe read the first. March 1982. The second. September 1984. The third. March 1985. That was Ebony. She walked along the shelves, reading dates. From 1982 to 2010. 28 years. 43 dolls. One of the forensics investigators came down, saw the shelves, stopped. My God, she whispered. Monroe turned. Photograph everything. Then examine every single one of these dolls. I think they all contain remains. Monroe called Cassandra that afternoon. We found them. You were right. Eleanor's mansion had a hidden basement. 43 dolls, all with dates. We're examining them now. Cassandra felt sick. 43 children? We don't know yet. Possibly. I need to help. I need to do something. You already did. You found the first one. You connected the pattern. It's not enough. Those families need to know. They've been waiting years. Decades. That's my job. Let me help with the dolls at least. I know antique dolls. I can help identify them, date them, figure out when they were made. Monroe was quiet. All right, come to the warehouse on Meeting Street tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. We're setting up a temporary lab. I could use your expertise. Thank you. But Cassandra, this is going to be hard. You're going to see disturbing things. I know. The warehouse was cold and clinical. Tables in rows, each with a doll. Forensic techs in white suits moving between them. Cameras, X-ray machines. evidence bags. Cassandra stood at the entrance, overwhelmed. Monroe came over. "Thank you for coming. I need you to look at the construction of each doll. Tell me anything you can about how they were made. Materials, techniques, anything that might tell us more about Eleanor's process." Cassandra nodded. "Put on gloves. Approach the first table." The doll sat under bright lights, already partially disassembled, the head separated from the body. Inside the head was a framework of wire and plaster, and wrapped in fabric calcified remains. Cassandra forced herself to focus on the doll itself, not what was inside. "The porcelain is modern," she said. "Poured porcelain, not pressed. You can tell by the smoothness, probably from the 1980s or 90s. The paint is acrylic, applied in layers. Very skilled work." She examined the hair. Real human hair, hand-rooted, each strand individually inserted. Hours of work per doll. The dress, hand-sewn, silk and velvet, period-accurate stitching. Someone spent days on each of these. Monroe was taking notes. So these weren't quick. She took her time. Yes, each doll probably took weeks to complete. Cassandra moved to the next table. Another doll. Blonde hair, blue dress, same construction, same materials, same meticulous detail. She worked through 12 dolls that day, each one identical in quality, each one containing human remains and hospital bracelets. By the time Cassandra left, it was dark. She sat in her car in the parking lot and cried. 43 children, turned into dolls. The forensics analysis took 2 weeks. On April 10, 2015, Monroe received the full report. Every single one of the 43 dolls contained human remains and a hospital bracelet from Charleston General Hospital. The bracelets belonged to babies born between 1982 and 2010. The forensics team cross-referenced the bracelets with missing children cases. They found matches for 24 of them. Monroe looked at the list. It began with LaToya Taylor, who disappeared at age 6 in 1982. It continued through the decades: Christopher Thompson, Ebony Jackson, Darius Williams, Andre Rodriguez. It ended with Brianna Martinez, who vanished in 2010. 24 children, all from Charleston, all Black, Latina, or Asian, all from low-income families, all cases gone cold. The other 19 dolls contained remains that couldn't be matched to missing persons reports. Monroe had to contact the families. Sharon Jackson came to the station on April 14th. Monroe showed her the doll with Ebony's bracelet, the forensic report, the DNA analysis confirming the remains were Ebony's. Sharon held the doll for a long time, just staring. This beautiful, terrible thing that was her daughter's tomb. "Why?" Sharon finally asked. "Why did she do this?" "I don't know," Monroe said. "Eleanor Whitmore is dead. She died in November 2014. Natural causes, heart failure. She was 83. She never confessed, never left any explanation. We searched her house. No journals, no notes, just the dolls. How did she take them? We're still investigating. But Eleanor ran the Whitmore Doll Hospital from 1974 to 2005, King Street, near several elementary schools. Our theory is she targeted children who came to the shop with their parents, learned their names, routines, then found them later, alone. She planned it, Sharon said. For years. Yes. Sharon set the doll down. What happens now? We're releasing the remains to families for burial. You'll be able to lay Ebony to rest. After 23 years. Sharon nodded, tears streaming. Thank you for finding her. Monroe contacted Cassandra that evening. I met with Ebony's mother today. Sharon Jackson. She wants to meet you. Why? Because you're the one who found her daughter. You're the reason she finally has answers. I don't know if I can do that, she specifically asked. She wants to thank you. Cassandra was quiet. Okay. When? Cassandra met Sharon Jackson 2 days later at a coffee shop downtown. Sharon was 62, small, gray hair, tired eyes. They sat across from each other, both unsure how to start. Thank you for meeting me, Sharon said. I know this must be difficult. I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't imagine. Detective Monroe told me you're the one who found the doll. That you realized something was wrong. That you connected the pattern. Cassandra nodded. I wish I'd found it sooner. It's not your fault. You found her. After 23 years, you found my baby. Sharon's voice broke. Do you know what that means? I spent 23 years not knowing, wondering, hoping, and all that time she was 4 blocks away, in that basement. But now I know, because of you. I just opened a box. I just happened to be the one. No. Detective Monroe told me you researched Eleanor Whitmore. You found the connection to the missing children. You pushed for them to search the mansion. If you hadn't done that, she'd still be there. They'd all still be there. Cassandra felt tears coming. There are 43, 24 identified, 19 we don't know. I know. I've met some of the other families. We're forming a support group, parents who lost children to Eleanor Whitmore. We're going to fight for justice. But Eleanor's dead. Her estate isn't. She left $12 million to her nephew, Richard Whitmore. Money she made while our children were dying. We're going to sue. We're going to make sure he doesn't keep that blood money. Cassandra leaned forward. How can I help? Sharon looked surprised. You've already done so much. Not enough. I want to help. Whatever you need. The lawyers say we need to establish a pattern. Prove Eleanor knew what she was doing. That she planned it. If we can show it was deliberate, systematic, the estate is liable. We need someone who understands the dolls, who can testify about the work that went into them, the time, the planning. I can do that, Cassandra said immediately. I'll testify. I'll help however I can. The news broke on April 16, 2015. Charleston doll maker linked to 24 missing children. House of Horrors. Remains of children found in Victorian dolls. Elderly woman's macabre collection solves decades of cold cases. Media descended on Charleston. Reporters camped outside the Whitmore mansion. Interviewed neighbors, families, experts. Cassandra's shop was swarmed. Reporters knocked constantly, wanted interviews. Cassandra refused all interviews, told them to contact Detective Monroe. But one reporter wouldn't leave, a woman from a national network. She waited outside the shop for 3 hours. Finally, Cassandra came out. Please leave me alone. I'm not talking to press. Just one question, the reporter said. The families are filing a lawsuit against Richard Whitmore, Eleanor's nephew. He inherited $12 million. Do you think he knew what his aunt was doing? Cassandra stopped. I don't know. He visited that house. He had to have known something was wrong. Don't you think? I have no idea. Please leave. The reporter held up her phone. Recording. Richard Whitmore lives in Atlanta. Real estate developer. He visited his aunt twice a year for 40 years. You're telling me he never went in the basement? Never asked why she had 43 dolls down there? I'm not telling you anything. Goodbye. Cassandra went back inside, locked the door. But the reporter's words stuck with her. Richard Whitmore visited twice a year. For 40 years. He had to have known something. In June 2015, 24 families filed a class action lawsuit against Eleanor Whitmore's estate, named Richard Whitmore as executor and sole beneficiary, demanded the estate be liquidated. Funds distributed as compensation. Richard Whitmore hired Sullivan and Hayes, one of the most expensive law firms in Atlanta. The legal battle began. Cassandra was at home when she got the call. Unknown number. Hello, Miss Bennett? This is Robert Hayes from Sullivan and Hayes Law Firm. We represent Richard Whitmore. Cassandra's stomach dropped. Yes, we understand you've been speaking with families of alleged victims, offering to testify in their civil suit against our client. I haven't offered anything. Sharon Jackson asked me to help. Miss Bennett, we're calling as a courtesy to inform you that if you provide testimony that defames our client or makes unsubstantiated claims about his knowledge of his aunt's activities, we will pursue legal action against you personally. Legal action? Defamation. Tortious interference. We have extensive resources. We will protect our client's interests. Your client inherited $12 million from a woman who killed 24 children. Alleged actions. Eleanor Whitmore was never charged, never tried. She's presumed innocent, and our client had no knowledge of anything improper. Any testimony suggesting otherwise is libelous. I'm testifying about the dolls, about Eleanor's work. We're watching you, Miss Bennett, very carefully. Good day." He hung up. Cassandra sat there, phone in hand, shaking. They were threatening her. She called Sharon Jackson. "They called me too," Sharon said. "Richard's lawyers told me if we pursue this lawsuit, they'll drag it out for years, bury us in legal fees. Said most of us can't afford lawyers, that we'll give up." "Are you going to?" "Hell no." "What about you?" After that threat, Cassandra thought about the dolls, about the 43 children, about Ebony Jackson, who'd been 7 years old. "No," Cassandra said. "I'm testifying. I don't care what they threaten." The lawsuit was filed in Charleston County Court on June 25th. By July, Richard Whitmore's lawyers had filed multiple motions to dismiss. They argued that the statute of limitations had expired, that there was no proof Eleanor intentionally caused harm, and that her mental illness absolved the estate of liability. Crucially, they insisted Richard had no knowledge of the crimes and shouldn't be punished for his aunt's actions. The judge denied most motions. The case proceeded, but the legal maneuvering slowed everything. In August, Cassandra was served with papers. Richard Whitmore was suing her. Defamation. $500,000. The complaint cited her statements to Sharon Jackson, her offer to testify, her malicious campaign to destroy Richard Whitmore's reputation. Cassandra read the papers in disbelief. Jerome came into the room. "What is that?" "He's suing me. Richard Whitmore is suing me for helping the families." "Can he do that?" "Apparently." Cassandra called Sharon. "Did you see? He's suing me. He sued 3 other people too. Anyone who agreed to testify. He's trying to scare us." "It's working. Don't let it. That's what he wants. He wants us too afraid to fight, but we can't let him win. My daughter died because of his aunt. I'm not letting him keep that money without a fight." Cassandra took a breath. "Okay, I'm not backing down." "Good, because we need you. The lawyer says your testimony about the dolls is crucial. You can prove Eleanor spent weeks on each one. Planning, premeditation. That makes the estate liable. I'll testify, no matter what." But Richard Whitmore wasn't done. In September, someone broke into Bennett's Antiques. 3 in the morning. The alarm went off. By the time police arrived, the person was gone. Nothing stolen, but the back room, Cassandra's workroom, was destroyed. Tables overturned, supplies scattered, tools broken, and spray painted on the wall in red. "Stop lying." Cassandra stood in the doorway, staring. Detective Monroe came, took photos, dusted for prints. "Do you think this is related to the lawsuit?" "Of course it is. Richard Whitmore is trying to scare me. We have no evidence of that. Who else would do this?" Monroe didn't answer. That night, Cassandra couldn't sleep. She lay awake thinking about the message. Stop lying. But she wasn't lying. Eleanor Whitmore had killed 24 children. The dolls proved it. And Richard had to have known something. At 4 in the morning, Cassandra made a decision. She was going to find proof. Cassandra started researching Richard Whitmore, 58 years old, real estate developer in Atlanta, married, 2 kids. He'd visited Eleanor twice a year, spring and fall, for 40 years, 80 visits. She found his company website, Whitmore Properties, high-end developments. She found his social media, pictures of him at charity events, golf courses, family vacations. He looked normal, successful, clean-cut, but 80 visits. For 40 years, he had to have seen something. Cassandra called Detective Monroe. "Have you interviewed Richard Whitmore yet?" "Yes, right after we found the dolls." "What did he say?" "He claimed he had no knowledge of his aunt's activities. Said he visited twice a year, but she never let him into the basement. Said the door was always locked. He assumed it was storage. For 40 years, he never once asked what was down there. That's his story. Do you believe him?" Monroe was quiet. "It doesn't matter what I believe. Eleanor's dead. She can't be charged. Richard wasn't involved in any crimes. We have no evidence he knew anything." "But, Cassandra, I know you want justice. I do too. But legally, Richard hasn't done anything wrong. He inherited money from his aunt. That's not a crime. Even if the money came from a serial killer, even then, I'm sorry, the civil lawsuit is your best chance. But proving Richard knew, that's going to be very hard. Cassandra hung up. She stared at her computer screen. Richard Whitmore smiled back at her from a golf course photo. There had to be something. Some proof he'd known. She kept digging. Cassandra found old property records for the Whitmore mansion. Eleanor had owned it since 1972, but in 1995, she'd done renovations. Major ones. Cassandra found the permits. Filed with Charleston County. Basement waterproofing and climate control installation. $35,000. Huge amount in 1995. Climate control. In a basement. Why would Eleanor spend that much unless she was storing something valuable down there? Cassandra kept digging. She found the contractor. A local company. Still in business. She called them. Hi. I'm researching a historic property. The Whitmore Mansion on Trad Street. Your company did work there in 1995. Do you have any records from that job? The receptionist transferred her to an older man. The owner. Whitmore Place? Yeah. I remember that job. That old lady was particular. Very particular. What kind of work did you do? Basement. She wanted it sealed, waterproofed, temperature and humidity controlled. Like a museum. Cost a fortune. Did you see what she was storing down there? Dolls. Hundreds of them, on shelves, all lined up, creeped me out honestly. But she paid well. Said they were valuable antiques. Do you remember if anyone else was there during the work? Family members? Her nephew came by once. Middle-aged guy. Real estate developer from Atlanta. He looked around. Asked what we were doing. The old lady told him she was preserving her collection. He seemed fine with it. Cassandra's heart raced. The nephew saw the dolls? Yeah, saw the whole setup. The shelves, the climate system, everything. Are you sure? Positive. I remember because he made a joke. Said something like, Aunt Eleanor, you're spending more on these dolls than most people spend on their kids. She didn't laugh. Would you be willing to testify to that? In a lawsuit? The man hesitated. What kind of lawsuit? The families of Eleanor's victims are suing her estate. They need to prove the nephew knew about the dolls. Jesus. Those dolls had human remains in them? Yes. Long silence. Okay, yeah, I'll testify. That's just wrong. Cassandra got his contact information. Called Sharon Jackson immediately. I found something. A contractor who worked on the basement in '95. He saw Richard there. Richard saw the dolls. He knew. Are you serious? The contractor will testify. Richard made a joke about Eleanor spending money on the dolls. He knew they were there. He knew about the climate-controlled basement. Sharon was crying. Finally, we have proof. But 2 days later, the contractor called Cassandra back. I can't testify. I'm sorry. What? Why not? I got a call. From lawyers. They said if I testify, they'll sue me. Breach of confidentiality from the original job. They'll drag me into court for years. I can't afford that. I have a business to run. They threatened you. Yeah. And I believe them. These guys have unlimited money. I can't fight that. I'm sorry. He hung up. Cassandra sat there. Stunned. Richard's lawyers had gotten to him. She called Sharon. The contractor backed out. Richard's lawyers threatened him. They're doing that to everyone. 3 other witnesses have withdrawn. People who saw Richard at the house. People who heard Eleanor talk about him. They're all too scared now. This is witness intimidation. Technically, it's legal. They're not physically threatening anyone. Just threatening lawsuits. And it's working. People can't afford to fight. So what do? We keep fighting. We still have forensics. We still have the dolls. We still have your testimony. It's not over. But Cassandra could hear the doubt in Sharon's voice. In October, Richard Whitmore sold Eleanor's beach house on Sullivan's Island. $1.8 million. The judge allowed it because the lawsuit hadn't frozen that property yet. By the time the families appealed, the money was gone. moved to offshore accounts. Cassandra watched the news coverage. Saw Richard Whitmore outside a courthouse in Atlanta. His lawyer reading a statement. Mr. Whitmore is cooperating fully with all investigations. He had no knowledge of his aunt's tragic mental illness. He has deep sympathy for the affected families, but he will not allow false accusations and character assassination to destroy his life. The lawyer looked at the camera. We will pursue all legal remedies against those who continue to defame Mr. Whitmore. That was a message. To Cassandra, to Sharon, to anyone still fighting. Stop or we'll destroy you. 1 month later, someone followed Cassandra home from work. A black SUV. Tinted windows. Stayed 3 cars behind. Through downtown. Onto the highway. Into her neighborhood. Cassandra's hands tightened on the wheel. She pulled into her driveway. The SUV drove past slowly, then turned around. Came back, parked across the street. Cassandra sat in her car, watching. The SUV just sat there, engine running, windows dark. She called 911. There's a vehicle outside my house. It followed me home. I feel threatened. Police arrived 15 minutes later. By then, the SUV was gone. The officer took a report. Did you get the license plate? No. Too dark. Any idea who it might be? Cassandra hesitated. If she said Richard Whitmore, they'd think she was paranoid. No, but she knew. Jerome found Cassandra in the kitchen at midnight. She was at the table with her laptop, papers everywhere. What are you doing? Looking for proof. There has to be something. Some way to prove Richard knew. Jerome sat down. Cassandra, maybe you should stop. What? This is consuming you. You're not sleeping, barely eating. You're obsessed. 24 children are dead. Their families deserve justice. And you've done everything you can. You found the dolls. You connected the pattern. You helped start the investigation. But now you're putting yourself at risk. These people, Richard's lawyers, they're dangerous. Unlimited resources, threatening you, following you, breaking into the shop. So I should just give up? Let him win? I'm not saying give up. I'm saying protect yourself. Let the lawyers handle it. Stop investigating on your own. Please. Cassandra looked at her husband. He looked worried, scared. She closed the laptop. Okay, you're right. I'll stop. But she didn't stop. Cassandra found the flight records. Richard Whitmore flew from Atlanta to Charleston twice a year, every spring and fall, for 40 years. Hotel records. He stayed at the Francis Marion, room 212, credit card receipts, same restaurant, Hyman Seafood, every visit. She tracked his visits against the dates on the dolls. Spring 1992. Richard visited March 10th. Ebony Jackson disappeared March 15th. Fall 1995. Richard visited October 20th. Jasmine Harris disappeared October 25th. Spring 2001. Richard visited March 5th. Jessica Tran disappeared March 10th. The pattern repeated. Richard visited. Days later, a child disappeared. Every time. Cassandra made a chart. 40 years of visits. 40 years of disappearances. The correlation was undeniable. She called Detective Monroe. I found something. Richard's visits correlate with when children disappeared. Every time he visited, a child vanished within a week. Monroe was quiet. Correlation isn't causation. This is too consistent to be coincidence. Maybe. But it doesn't prove Richard knew anything. Eleanor could have targeted children independently. The timing could be random. Or they were working together. You're suggesting Richard Whitmore helped his aunt kidnap and kill children. Cassandra stopped. Was that what she was suggesting? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe he knew and stayed silent. Either way, he's complicit. Cassandra, you need to be careful. Accusing someone of involvement in murder is serious. If you're wrong, you could face criminal charges, not just civil. I'm not wrong. Then prove it. Find actual evidence, not correlations. Find something concrete. Monroe hung up. Cassandra stared at her chart. She needed proof. Real proof. In November, Richard Whitmore's lawyers filed a motion. They wanted the lawsuit dismissed, citing Eleanor's mental state as proof she'd been incompetent and arguing the estate shouldn't be liable. The families fought back, but their lawyers were overmatched. Sullivan and Hayes had 15 attorneys working the case. The families had 2. The hearing was in December. Cassandra attended, sat in the back with Sharon and other families. Richard Whitmore was there, expensive suit, sitting at the defense table, calm, confident. He looked at Cassandra once, made eye contact, smiled. Cassandra felt cold. The judge heard arguments for 3 hours, then announced a decision would come in January. Outside the courthouse, Sharon grabbed Cassandra's arm. "We're losing. You can see it. The judge is going to dismiss." "No. We can't give up. What choice do we have? We're out of money. We can't afford more legal fees. Richard's lawyers have buried us in motions and appeals. This is how the system works. The rich win, the poor lose." Cassandra looked at the other families, all exhausted, devastated. She'd promised to help them, but she was failing. That night, Cassandra got a call. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello?" Heavy breathing. "Hello?" A man's voice. Distorted, like speaking through fabric. "Stop. Who is this? Stop investigating. Stop helping the families. Stop testifying. This is your last warning." "Richard, is this you? You don't know what you're dealing with. Walk away before you get hurt." The line went dead. Cassandra's hands were shaking. She called Detective Monroe, left a voicemail. "Someone just threatened me. On the phone. Distorted voice. Told me to stop investigating or I'd get hurt. I think it's related to the Whitmore case." Monroe called back an hour later. "I'm coming over. Don't go anywhere." Monroe arrived with another detective. They took Cassandra's statement, recorded the call log. "We'll trace the number," Monroe said. "But it's probably a burner phone, untraceable." "This is getting dangerous," Jerome said. "Cassandra, you need to stop. This isn't worth your life." "He's right," Monroe said. "Whoever this is, they're escalating. First the break-in, now threats. Next could be physical violence. So Richard Whitmore gets to intimidate everyone into silence? We don't know it's Richard. Who else would it be?" Monroe didn't answer. After they left, Jerome looked at Cassandra. "Please, I'm begging you. Stop this. Let it go." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because those children deserve justice. And if I stop, who's going to fight for them? Sharon? The other families? They don't have resources. They don't have knowledge of the dolls like I do. If I walk away, Richard wins. Eleanor's crimes stay hidden, and those 43 children become statistics." Jerome shook his head. "I can't lose you. Please." "You won't. I'll be careful. I promise." But Cassandra wasn't sure she could keep that promise. In January 2016, the judge ruled. He denied Richard's motion to dismiss. The lawsuit would proceed, but he also ruled that the families had to prove Richard had actual knowledge of Eleanor's crimes. Correlation wasn't enough. Circumstantial evidence wasn't enough. They needed proof Richard knew the dolls contained human remains. Sharon called Cassandra. "The lawyer says this is almost impossible to prove. Eleanor's dead. Richard denies everything. There's no paper trail. No witnesses willing to testify. We'd need a confession." "Then we get a confession." "How?" Cassandra had an idea, a dangerous one. "Let me think about it." Cassandra flew to Atlanta 2 weeks later. Didn't tell Jerome, didn't tell Sharon, didn't tell anyone. She found Richard Whitmore's office, a glass tower downtown. She called from the lobby. "I need to speak with Richard Whitmore. Tell him it's about his aunt's estate. Tell him Cassandra Bennett wants to talk." 10 minutes later, she was in his office. Richard sat behind a massive desk, 58 years old, tanned, silver hair, perfect teeth. "Miss Bennett, I've heard a lot about you. I'm sure you have. My lawyers told me you've been harassing witnesses, spreading lies about me. I've been finding the truth." "The truth?" Richard laughed. "The truth is, my aunt was a sick woman, mentally ill. I had no idea what she was doing. And you and those families are trying to blame me for her crimes. You visited her twice a year for 40 years. You saw the basement. You saw the dolls. I saw a collection of antique dolls. That's all. A contractor testified. You made a joke about how much she was spending on them. That contractor withdrew his statement, realized he was mistaken, because you threatened him. I protected myself from defamation. There's a difference. Cassandra leaned forward. Children are dead, 24 of them. Your aunt killed them. And you knew. Richard's smile faded. Careful, Miss Bennett. You're recording this, aren't you? Wearing a wire? Trying to get me to confess to something? Cassandra wasn't wearing a wire, but she didn't deny it. Let's say hypothetically I did know something, Richard said. Let's say hypothetically I visited my aunt and saw those dolls and suspected they weren't just antiques. What would you expect me to do? Turn in my own aunt? Destroy my family name? Ruin my life? Yes, that's not how the world works. Family protects family, even when they've done terrible things. So you admit you knew. Richard stood up. Get out of my office. This conversation is over. And if you come near me again, if you contact me again, if you keep spreading lies, I will destroy you. I will sue you for everything you have. I will make sure you never work again. Do you understand? I understand you're a coward who let children die. Security escorted Cassandra out, but she'd gotten what she needed. He'd admitted it. Hypothetically. But he'd admitted knowing. Family protects family. Even when they've done terrible things. That was a confession. Cassandra called Sharon from the airport. I got him. I went to his office. He admitted he knew. What? Are you serious? He said hypothetically if he'd known, he wouldn't have turned in his aunt. That family protects family. That's a confession. But you weren't recording? No. So it's your word against his. Yes. But I can testify to it. Sharon was quiet. Cassandra, he's going to say you're lying. His lawyers will tear you apart on the stand. Without proof, it's meaningless. But I know the truth now. He knew. For 40 years, he knew and said nothing. I believe you. But the court won't. Not without evidence. Cassandra hung up, feeling defeated. She'd confronted Richard Whitmore. She'd heard him admit it. But it wasn't enough. The lawsuit dragged through 2016. Motion after motion. Delay after delay. Richard's lawyers were masters at running out the clock. By May, 3 families had dropped out. Couldn't afford to keep fighting. By August, 5 more settled for small amounts, $20,000 each. By October, only 16 families remained. Sharon Jackson was one of them. We can't give up, she told Cassandra. My daughter died. I'm not letting him win. But they were losing. Everyone could see it. In December 2016, something changed. A woman contacted Detective Monroe. Her name was Linda Whitmore, Richard's ex-wife. They'd divorced in 2010. Bitter divorce. Custody battle. Linda had stayed quiet for years, but the news coverage had gotten to her. She called Monroe. I have information about Richard, about his aunt. Monroe met her at a coffee shop off the highway. Linda was in her 50s, nervous, chain-smoking. Richard visited his aunt twice a year, she said. I went with him a few times, in the 90s, before we had kids. What did you see? The basement, Eleanor showed us. She was proud of her collection. All those dolls lined up on shelves. It was creepy. I told Richard I didn't want to go back there. It felt wrong. Did Eleanor say anything about the dolls? She called them her special children. Said they'd be with her forever. Richard laughed. Said his aunt was eccentric. But I saw his face. He looked uncomfortable, like he knew something was off. Did you ever suspect the dolls contained human remains? No, not then. But after the news broke, I realized. That's what Richard had been hiding. He knew. Maybe not at first, but at some point, he figured it out. And he said nothing. Would you testify to this? In the civil lawsuit, Linda hesitated. If I do, Richard will make my life hell. He'll use it against me in custody hearings. Say I'm vindictive, lying, but you're willing to risk that? Those families deserve to know the truth. Yes, I'll testify. Monroe called Cassandra immediately. We have a witness, Richard's ex-wife. She'll testify he knew about the dolls. Cassandra felt hope for the first time in months. But 3 days later, Linda Whitmore withdrew her statement. She called Monroe. "I can't do it. I'm sorry. Richard's lawyers contacted me, threatened to reopen the custody case, to take my kids. I can't risk that." Monroe tried to convince her, but Linda had made up her mind. Another witness silenced. The trial finally began in March 2017, 3 years after Cassandra found the first doll. The courtroom was packed. Families, media, protesters outside with signs. Justice for the victims, Whitmore knew. Cassandra testified on day 3. She explained the dolls, the meticulous work, the hours of construction. Each doll took weeks to create. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned, systematic. Eleanor Whitmore knew exactly what she was doing. Richard's lawyer cross-examined her. "Miss Bennett, you've never met Eleanor Whitmore, correct?" "Correct. You have no direct knowledge of her mental state." "No. You're not a psychiatrist." "No. So your testimony about her knowing what she was doing is speculation?" "It's based on the evidence, the craftsmanship of the dolls. But you're speculating about her intent, correct?" "I'm interpreting the evidence. That's not your job. That's the jury's job." The lawyer sat down. Cassandra felt like she'd failed. Sharon Jackson testified on day 5. She talked about Ebony, about the 23 years of not knowing. She cried on the stand. Richard's lawyer didn't cross-examine her. The jury was already sympathetic. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Closing arguments were in April. The jury deliberated for 4 days. The verdict came on April 26, 2017. Cassandra sat in the courtroom with Sharon and the other families. Richard Whitmore sat at the defense table. Expressionless, the jury foreman stood. "We find in favor of the defendant, Richard Whitmore." Gasps in the courtroom. "We find that while Eleanor Whitmore's actions were heinous, there is insufficient evidence that Richard Whitmore had actual knowledge of those actions. Therefore, the estate is not liable." Sharon collapsed. Cassandra caught her. The families were crying, shouting. The judge banged his gavel. "Order! Order in the court!" Richard Whitmore showed no emotion. His lawyer shook his hand. They'd won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Sharon gave a statement, tears streaming. "This isn't justice." Richard Whitmore knew what his aunt was doing. He profited from her crimes. The system protected him because he has money and we don't. Our children deserved better. They deserved justice. Instead, they got a legal system that values wealth over truth. Cassandra stood beside her, said nothing. What was there to say? They'd lost. Richard Whitmore sold the Trad Street mansion in October 2017, $8 million. Moved to Barcelona, Spain. By December, he was living in a luxury apartment near the beach. The families tried to appeal, but without new evidence, there was nothing to appeal. The case was over. Richard Whitmore had won. The remains were released to families throughout 2016 and 2017. Sharon Jackson buried Ebony on May 15, 2016. Magnolia Cemetery. Small ceremony. About 60 people. The casket was tiny, white, covered in yellow flowers. Cassandra attended. Sat in the back. Sharon spoke. About Ebony. About her smile. Her love of reading. About how she'd been everything. "I spent 24 years not knowing," Sharon said. 24 years wondering if she was alive somewhere, if she'd run away, if she hated me. And now I know the truth. It's horrible. But it's the truth. And I can finally say goodbye. She broke down. The casket was lowered. Sharon threw a yellow flower on top. Cassandra watched the other families do the same. 24 funerals over 2 years. 24 children finally laid to rest. The 19 unidentified victims were buried together in a city plot. A single memorial stone. Unknown children. Gone, but not forgotten. Cassandra visited that grave once. Stood there for an hour. Apologized for not being able to give them their names back. Cassandra struggled after the trial. The nightmares came back. Worse than before. She'd dream about the dolls, about porcelain faces cracking open, about finding children inside. She'd dream about Richard Whitmore, about him laughing, about him getting away. She stopped working at the shop. Couldn't handle being around antiques. Jerome ran it alone. Cassandra saw a therapist. Was diagnosed with PTSD and depression. You did everything you could, the therapist said. You can't blame yourself. But Cassandra did blame herself. She'd found the dolls, started the investigation, promised the families justice, and failed. Detective Monroe retired in May 2018. She called Cassandra before her last day. I wanted to thank you for everything you did. You found those children. You gave families answers. That matters. But Richard won, in court, but not in truth. Everyone knows he knew. The media knows. The public knows. He had to leave the country because people were harassing him. That's something. It's not enough, I know. But it's what we have. Monroe hung up. Cassandra never heard from her again. Years passed. The story faded from news. Other tragedies took its place. The families continued meeting. A support group. Every month, they talked about their children. About the years of not knowing. About the system failing them. At least we have answers, Sharon would say. That's more than we had before. But everyone knew answers weren't justice. In 2023, a documentary filmmaker came to Charleston. She wanted to make a film about Eleanor Whitmore, about the 43 dolls. She interviewed families, talked to Monroe, visited graves. She contacted Cassandra. I'd like to interview you. You're central to this story. You found the first doll. I don't want to be interviewed. Please. The families want this story told. They want people to remember their children, not as victims, as people. Cassandra thought about it, finally agreed. The interview was in her home. The filmmaker asked about finding the doll, about the investigation, about Richard Whitmore. Do you think he knew? Yes, I know he knew. I confronted him. He admitted it. But you couldn't prove it. No. And that's the tragedy. He's living in Barcelona now, in a luxury apartment, while 24 families are visiting graves. Justice failed. The documentary was released on Netflix in October 2023. The Doll Maker. It got good reviews. Millions watched. For a few months, the story was news again. Reporters interviewed families, asked about Richard Whitmore. Some tried to contact him in Barcelona. He refused all interviews. His lawyer sent cease and desist letters. Sharon Jackson did one interview. On camera. Do you have closure now? The reporter asked. Sharon looked at the camera. I have answers. That's not the same as closure. Closure would be justice. Someone held accountable. But we didn't get that. We just got answers. And a grave to visit. What would you say to Eleanor Whitmore if you could? I would ask her why. Why Ebony? Why any of them? What did you get from it? But she's dead, so I'll never know. The interview ended. Life continued. Present day. December 2025. 10 years after Cassandra found the first doll. Sharon Jackson is 67 years old. She visits Ebony's grave every Sunday, brings yellow flowers, sits on the grass, talks to her daughter. You'd be 40 now. I wonder what you would have done. Would you have been a teacher? A doctor? Would you have gotten married? Had kids? She knows Ebony can't answer. But she talks anyway. After 33 years, it's habit. The grave is well maintained. Fresh flowers every week. Grass trimmed. Headstone cleaned. Other families do the same. 24 graves scattered across Charleston's cemeteries, all visited regularly. The 19 unidentified victims are still together in their city plot. Cassandra visits that grave sometimes, brings flowers, stands there, apologizes for not doing more. Cassandra Bennett is 55 now. She still helps Jerome run the antique shop. She's better than she was. The nightmares have faded. She can look at dolls without feeling sick, but she refuses to buy Victorian dolls. Won't touch them, won't sell them. Jerome doesn't argue. He understands. Sometimes customers recognize her. Are you the one who found the dolls? The Eleanor Whitmore dolls? And Cassandra will say quietly, we don't discuss that. I'm sorry. And the customer will leave. And the shop will be quiet again. Richard Whitmore is 63 now. He lives in his luxury apartment in Barcelona, remarried and shielded by lawyers. He refuses all interviews, never admits guilt, never apologizes, and simply keeps the $12 million. The Whitmore mansion stands empty. No one wants to buy it. 4 owners tried. Each gave up. Construction workers refuse to go inside, say it feels wrong. Local kids call it the dollhouse. The for sale sign has been up for years. The price keeps dropping. It waits, empty and quiet and full of ghosts. Cassandra thinks about the dolls sometimes. She thinks about Eleanor's madness, Richard's greed, and the failure of the justice system. But mostly, she thinks about the children. 43 of them, 24 with names, 19 without. All gone, all turned into objects, all waiting decades to be found. On Sunday, Cassandra drives to Magnolia Cemetery. She brings flowers to Ebony's grave. Sharon is already there. Like always, they sit together. Don't talk much. Don't need to. 2 women who tried to fight for justice, who did everything they could and who failed. But they keep coming back anyway, because that's all they have left. The flowers, the graves, the memory. It's not justice, but it's something. And sometimes, something is all you get. The end.